evidence from archaeology and history for the Jewish case for the Temple Mount. I would like to go over three historians from the Roman era. One was a direct witness to the event themselves, and others wrote about it as part of the historical reporting of this period. Josephus, Jewish Roman historian. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus provided a detailed account of the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem in his work, The Jewish Wars. So Josephus was a Jewish military leader who initially fought against the Romans, but later surrendered and became a historian under the Roman patronage. So Josephus described the siege and destruction of Jerusalem by the Roman forces led by General Titus. He provides a vivid description of the Roman siege of Jerusalem, including the construction of siege works and the hardships faced by the inhabitants of the city. He also describes the severe famine that afflicted Jerusalem during the siege, leading to widespread starvation and the internal strife among the various Jewish factions. And the climax of Josephus' narrative is the burning of the Second Temple. According to his account, the temple caught fire after Roman soldiers set fire to its gates. The destruction of the temple was a monumental event in Jewish history. It had profound religious and cultural implications. Here's an excerpt from the account. Now, as soon as the army had no more people to slay or to plunder, because there remained none to be the objects of their fury, but they would not have spared any, had there remained any other work to be done. Titus Caesar gave orders that they should now demolish the entire city and temple. And then he goes on and on explaining how this destruction was carried out. Another Roman historian, Tacitus, also makes reference to the destruction of the Jerusalem temple. Tacitus, a Roman senator and a historian, he wrote a significant work called Histories, covering the year of the four emperors and the Flavian dynasty's rise to power. In Book 5, Chapter 13 of Histories, Tacitus briefly mentions the destruction of the temple during the Roman campaign in Jerusalem. The passage is not as detailed as Josephus' account, but confirms the event. It provides a general account of Titus being in command of the army in Judea and mentions the Roman campaigns in the region. Here is a Tacitus reference. Titus was now in command of the army in Judea. There, 3 legions were on foot with some detachments from the other legions and cohorts beside the foreign troops and a large proportion of auxiliaries. There was a force of the allies with King Agrippa and his cavalry, and all his force was under orders for the recovery of Jerusalem, according to the original scheme for the war. But Titus went off at a tangent under the influence of Romans, which interpreted favorably. Cassius Dio, another Roman historian who wrote Roman history covering events from the earliest times to his own period, also made reference to the Roman destruction of Jerusalem. Unfortunately, his account of Jewish-Roman war is incomplete. Only fragments of his writing on this period survive. However, in one fragment, Cassius Dio mentions the destruction of the temple during the Roman campaign against Jerusalem. Now let's turn to the important archaeological evidences that can help us affirm the existence of the Jewish temple and its destruction by the Romans in AD 70. First, the temple warning inscription. So in 1871, a French archaeologist found a Greek inscription warning Gentiles not to enter further into the temple compound. So these kind of inscriptions were also witnessed by the first century historian Josephus. He makes repeated references to temple warning inscriptions. Second, Warren Shaft and the Gihon Spring. In the mid-19th century, British engineer and archaeologist Charles Warren conducted surveys around the Temple Mount area. So he discovered a vertical shaft leading to the Gihon Spring, which was crucial for the water supply of the ancient city. Some researchers have suggested that this shaft played a role in the water system of the First Temple period. There is a very curious incident in 2 Samuel chapter 5. This is what it says. On that day, David said, anyone who conquers the Jebusites will have to use the water shaft to reach those lame and blind. You see a reference to a water shaft that goes all the way up to the Temple Mount. Numerous mikvahs were found in the area surrounding the Temple Mount. There are also documented underground cavities upon the Temple Mount that were surveyed by the explorers in the 19th century. One less known cistern, which is located directly under Al-Aqsa Mosque, was found by the British Mandate Antiquities Department in the 1940s, but it was never published. We found the documentation of this mikvah under the Al-Aqsa Mosque in the British archives, and it was later published in 2008. Fourth, we can also see the Herodian architecture. Several locations upon the Temple Mount, especially the double gate entry halls under the Al-Aqsa Mosque, it preserved until today one of the finest examples of the Herodian art engraved on stone. Several gates of today's Temple Mount still preserve remnants of the gates from the late Second Temple period. Next, the Robinson's Arch. In the 19th century, American scholar Edward Robinson identified a large arch-like structure on the southwest corner of the Temple Mount. This structure, known as Robinson's Arch, is believed to have been part of the monumental staircase leading to the Second Temple. In 2011, a high priestly golden bell was discovered on the Temple Mount site as well. This golden bell dates back to the Second Temple period. There is no precedent for this artifact from any excavation in Israel. Only our knowledge of such an object is from the biblical description of the bells sewn into the garments worn by the high priest. We can see the references in Exodus chapter 28, verses 33 to 34. Also under the Temple Mount, we can see large underground passes. We can also see a network of tunnels beneath the Temple Mount, all dating back much earlier to the pre-Islamic era, into the Second Temple period, or even into the First Temple era. Archaeological excavations conducted in the Opal area just south of the Temple Mount have revealed structures and artifacts associated with the First Temple period. These findings include ancient walls, pottery, and other remains that provide evidence of a significant settlement. When we talk about the archaeology of the Temple Mount, it's important to mention the Temple Mount Shifting Project. Now, how this project was started. In 1999, the Islamic Waqf got the approval of the Israeli government to create an emergency exit for the Al-Marwani Mosque. However, instead of a small emergency exit, the Waqf created a massive vaulted entranceway. In doing so, bulldozers dug a pit more than 131 feet long and nearly 40 feet deep. Trucks drove away 9,000 tons of earth from Temple Mount. The debris was laden with countless archaeological artifacts. They were removed from southeast area of the Temple Mount and dumped into the Kidron Valley. So Israeli archaeologists and scholars, they raised an outcry. The Temple Mount Shifting Project was founded to rescue these priceless artifacts. The primary goal of this project is to recover the artifacts and historical remains that could provide insight into the history of the Temple Mount, including the periods of the First and Second Temples and its later history. The project has yielded substantial number of artifacts from various historical time periods. Some of the notable categories of the artifacts are the following. So pottery shreds, animal bones, and other remains dating back to First Temple periods have been uncovered. These artifacts provide insight into the daily life and practices of the people during this ancient period. 15% of the pottery dates back to Iron Age, which is 800 to 586 BC, the First Temple period. So the discovery of the Immer Bulla from 7th to 6th century BC is of great significance. The seal bears the patron name Immer, a well-known biblical priestly family. We can see Immer mentioned in Jeremiah chapter 20, verse 1, when the priest Ashur, son of Immer, the official in charge of the temple of the Lord. Artifacts also from the Second Temple period, approximately from 516 to 8070, have been discovered as well, including various types of pottery, coins, and architectural fragments. 40% of the pottery comes from the Second Temple period. So these findings contribute to our understanding of the religious and cultural activities on the Temple Mount during the time of the Second Temple. So more than 500 coins, ranging from the Persian Ehud coins till 8070, have also been found. We also have a Umayyad coin with the Jewish symbol of menorah beside the text from a Muslim declaration of faith. This is a very interesting find. This shows that Umayyads did acknowledge the early presence of the Jews in that area. Also important to mention this. Over 7,000 coins from different historical periods have been found from the Persian era all the way to the Muslim periods, and much later was found in this temple shifting project. So overall findings of the Temple Mount Shifting Project supports the existence of the Jewish religious structure and the Jewish presence on the site since the time of the First Temple. So I recommend you to visit the Temple Mount Shifting Project's official website and get to know their latest findings if you're interested. Despite the mounting historical and archaeological evidence, the Palestinians continue to deny the existence of temple or Jewish connection to the Temple Mount. The Jews find themselves in an impossible and frustrating position. Palestinians claim sole historical right to the Temple Mount based on one night miraculous mythical journey of their prophets, while denying the real historical evidence that shows the presence of the Jewish temple on this site centuries before the arrival of the Muslims. Permission to do archaeological digs on the Temple Mount itself is not available. Palestinians deny the archaeological discoveries the Jews present, and also often they claim that Jews are intentionally trying to weaken their Islamic structures located on the Temple Mount by their archaeological digs.
יכול להיות שהם חופרים שמה ויגיעו לאיזה מנהרה, תעלה עתיקה, ייכנסו מתחת והגיעו מתחת לאל-אקסה. מה שאנחנו חושבים שהם רוצים ליצור עיר תחתית. עיר תחתית מסילואן, מתחת לרחבת הכותל, מנהרות הכותל ועד שער שכם יש את מערת צדקיהו. ואז ליצור רצף תת-קרקעי יהודי מתחת לכל המקום הזה, ועל ידי כך להשיג שליטה, להשיג